do it. Good evening and happy Sabbath to everyone who is watching online and those who are here with us. We pray that God has brought you to this week safely. Tonight, we are looking forward to having a very important, relevant, and necessary conversation. And by God's grace, at the end of it, there will be a lot of empowerment, a lot of understanding, and obviously the Lord will help us to know exactly how to go about His will. Before we do anything, let's bow our heads for our opening prayer at this time. Our Father, our God, we are thankful for your goodness towards us. We are grateful that you have chosen us to be mouthpiece, Lord. I pray that every single thing we say tonight will be inspired by you. Lord, this is not an easy conversation, but it's also not one we want to skirt around. So I pray that you speak with love, speak with authority, and with clarity, and hide us behind the cross. In your name I pray, amen. Well, this program is called Real Talk. We seek to have real conversations with real people about real topics. June in the United States of America is designated as Pride Month, and that is to highlight those in the LGBTQ plus community. And we thought it would be relevant to use that time to have a conversation about that movement and what it entails for us. If you're watching, you can text your questions to 855 997 1170. 855 997 1170. Text Real Talk, and that is how you're going to be connected. And there's also a QR code on the screen you can access through that as well. So without further ado, we're going to introduce our panel here. My name is Max Wood. I'll be the moderator for tonight, and on my immediate left, there is.
I am Paris Adolphus.
Lanaka Carrington.
All right, each of our panelists have different perspective on the topic, and as we talk tonight, we are going to see how they can contribute to what we're talking about. So I saw a clip this week, and it kind of went viral for a little bit. There was a pastor at a church. The clip depicts the pastor asking a person in drag, a drag queen, to leave the church, essentially saying you're not in proper dress, and ask that person to leave. So I want to start with Paris right away. We talked a little bit earlier, and you shared with me not only your experience in the LGBTQ lifestyle, but also with church and how that's gone for you. What can you tell us about that, especially in relation to the clip I just described?
So, first, let me give, like I told Max, I'm going to give a disclaimer. I always do because of who I am. I'm used to the comments, the looks, the feedback, the whatever you want to call it. Now, as far as the clip is concerned, I want to ask a question, but I already know the answer to this. But my question would have been, what makes the drag queen any different from a prostitute or a drunk or a drug dealer who's coming to church? What makes them any different is my question. And the reason I say that is because I have lost too many friends because of church people. And when I say lost them, literally I have gotten phone calls where I have had friends who have left a church scenario and literally have killed themselves because of the fact that they are going into what they consider a safe place, and it was not safe for them because of how they look, how they dress, or who they choose to love. That is an issue that any church chooses to, I'm not going to say sweep under the rug because they don't. That has become the prime focus outside of loving them for who they are. That is an issue that we as church people have to understand, that in the Bible it says, with loving kindness have I drawn thee. I don't see how you asking someone that is dressed like a drag queen to leave the church because they are not properly dressed. That means you're going to have to ask the prostitute who comes in with her short skirt all the way up her thigh to walk out. The drug dealer who comes in, shades, dreads, smelling like he's left a weed house, to walk out and leave the church. You're going to have to ask the drunkard who smells like he has had a fifth of gin for almost a week straight to walk out and leave the church. So my question is, what makes the drag queen any different from any one of those people I just named?
I mean, I'm not the pastor who did it, but I would say because it make people uncomfortable. You can hear me? Oh, okay. I think, and this is my opinion, my disclaimer is I don't know, I don't have anyone personally that's a part of the LGBTQ community, LGBT plus community, but I did see the clip, and I think the pastor felt uncomfortable, and the people are, based on the reaction, the other people was cheering in the congregation because they felt uncomfortable. See, people can kind of worry, I mean, deal with or manage a person who, a drug dealer. They probably can, you know. I have seen people look a certain way at people who are prostitutes, but at this moment, drag queens are unacceptable to be in the church. And because it's in the church, he thought it was his duty to point it out, make that person feel lower than anyone else in the church. And I'm not sure if the drag queen did get up and walk away or not, but the pastor definitely felt like he was in the right at that moment. Now, my thought about a drag queen coming to church, I'm happy. The drag queen was there for a reason. Anybody who comes to church should be going there for a reason, not because they want to look and see everybody else. But the church, according to me growing up, the church is a hospital. We don't need people who are 100% clean and healthy to be in the church. The church is for people, drag queens, drug dealers.
On that one.
So, full disclaimer, I did not see the video because when I tried to click on the video, I think you have to have, was it on Twitter?
Instagram.
So I don't have Instagram. So context means everything in life. We are programmed to react. In this generation we're living in, programmed to react. It's either you accept or you don't accept. We don't give room for conversation. Conversations like if you're not on that side, you're on that side. But when it comes to Christ, it's a different story. So now there's two things. You know, we say the church is a hospital. Hospital, you have many people, but no hospital ever denies someone from getting treated. So now there's a different thing. Is the member, is the person a member of the church, or is the person visiting the church? All of those you got to take all those into consideration. So now one thing I do, the gospel is the power that give you to empower you to overcome sin. So now if that person is a member of the church, let's say the person is a member of the church, they've been a long-standing member of the church. Let's say the pastor had a conversation with that person. The person said, you know what? That's your choice. You can choose to leave, come to the church, wear drag queen, whatever. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know the context. I wish I had seen the video. But let's just say the pastor had not taking any action. So it's hard for me to say, yes, the pastor was right or wrong, because I don't have any context.
So let me ask the question: does it make a difference whether they are a member or a visitor?
Yes, because the gospel gives you the power to overcome. So whenever Jesus had an encounter, one of the things they do with Jesus Christ, they make Jesus Christ a lover of sin, not a lover of sinner. Whenever Jesus had an encounter with someone, Jesus said, I don't condemn you because you suffer from a condition, right? Sin. What we see is the result of the condition, sin. Sin is the problem. So a lot of time when we teach comfortable in your sin. That's anti-gospel, because the gospel is the power giving you to overcome sin.
And that applies to every sin.
Every sin whatsoever it is.
So I guess the question to kind of go back to Paris is, why does it seem to be an emphasis on that particular sin? Because I could come in and be somebody who is having illicit sexual relationship with one of the young women in the church. And the pastor might know, other people might know. But the likelihood of in the middle of the service, I think that's where the question is, that the power that the gospel has includes all sin. But why is it there seems to be this emphasis on because of how it looks outwardly? Because we can see it visibly, not to allow the gospel to do its work. That's my line of thinking of this. I don't know what you guys think here on the panel. I see a lot of head shaking. Go ahead, Knocker. Go for it.
Can you repeat the question a little? Repeat the question.
Yeah, essentially, why is there seem to be the emphasis on what does it seem that discomfort exists on that particular line of sin?
You can take it.
Oh man, we love with our eyes. So
Okay.
I mean, we love with our eyes and not with our heart.
Okay.
And that makes sense. Meaning, what we see at times, it's hard to love it. I don't know if this coming out correct, but as people, we see it first, right?
Mhm.
And we're gonna tell ourselves if we're gonna like it or not. And I think with people who dress up, for instance, in the whole.
Don't worry.
Somebody else.
I'm gonna get to that. Don't worry.
It's a lot. So we're just talking about a person who was dressing, a guy who is dressing up as a woman.
Mhm.
And it's some. I mean, I'm gonna speak for myself. Sometimes it is difficult to automatically say, "I'm going to love you and show you love on what I see." Comes into the church and he's wearing a woman's clothes. It's like so many things come into my mind. Then I'm like instantly judging that person instantly, and I'm like, I should love you, but it's so hard to love you because you are doing something that that's wrong, right? And I think once you put that in your mind that is wrong in sexual relations with a younger person, you don't see that until somebody brings it up. And you may see little things like grooming or whatever, but you don't really see it. And some people go turn a blind eye. That's a whole nother conversation. But you see it. And because you see it, everybody sees it, and not everybody,
Okay.
Yeah.
Paris, if you could jump in
Yeah,
before I ask a follow-up question to that.
Okay, so I get the visibility is an issue, but it shouldn't be an issue. And I'm going to tell you why it shouldn't be an issue. When the people that are close to me at the church that I go to, when they knew about who I was and my lifestyle, that didn't matter. They loved me regardless of what I look like. Even if I decided to come to church dressed as a woman, they would have still loved on me because of who I am. That is out getting to know who the person is. You don't know what led them to dress the way they dress. You don't know what led them to act the way they act. And that is a part of building a relationship. When the pastor made the decision to stand on the pulpit in front of a live congregation and point out that there's a drag queen in the audience that is not accepted in God's house before they got into the building. Because that person could have been coming into that building to find a way to get out of the situation, but because your visibility was an issue, You literally caused somebody's soul to be lost forever because of your visibility. And I find that, for me, I find it's an issue, because being a part of this community, there are that can accept us for who we are, but we can't go there because your visibility is a problem. I can walk into any Adventist church right now to this day, and I promise you, hands down, there are people who love on me because they know who I am. Mm-hmm. There are other people who, when they see me walk into the room, the first thing they say is, and I've heard this because I have had people, I have gone to their houses for dinner, mm-hmm. and I have had them use me as their dinner plate. I'm going to say it, and I know I'm on live. Yes, I have had church people who I am close to. I have sat at their dining room tables, and they have roasted me while I am sitting at the same dining room table, and didn't think that I knew that they were talking about me in the room. Visibility of who a person is an issue. It shouldn't matter what to get to know the person, because you'll find out that a lot of times, and I do mean, I would say 58% of the time, majority of the people that are in this community, it is not by choice. People just assume that it's a choice. It is not by choice. I don't have people, and I'm going to use two people who I love to death because they love me. Dominique and Lottie, I kid you not, they love me for who I am. I have people like that in my life, and those are the people that I hold close because they are able to pray me through my issue. They don't judge, they don't condemn, they don't see none of that. They know how to go. I just had to throw that out there. Oh, my bad, I'm sorry.
So, you said a lot.
Yeah, you said a lot, and
That
I have a couple things, but go ahead, Max.
Let me stick with Paris for a little bit, because the first time I came across you, Paris, was, you probably don't even remember this, but we used to have a Friday night program every Friday night called Friday's Upper Room. Mm-hmm. This is way back. It's like 2009, 2010, and you did come on one. Remember you sharing in that program that there was something that happened where you were probably 2, 3 years old. Mm-hmm. I think you said you were with your mom. Mm-hmm. She took you to someone's home, and there they had pictures of, and it wasn't a seed that grew and blossomed right away, but ultimately do you feel like that was a seed that was meant to? Am I getting the story correct? Yeah. Okay. So in that sense, when you talk about that, the majority of the people in our lifestyle, it's not just a choice. Like, okay, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. There are some things that are internal, traumatic, so on and so forth, that have taken place. So I did want you to address a little bit. Is it just a matter of feeling, or a matter of question of identity as who they really, really are?
It's a mixture of both.
Okay.
For some, it's they're trying to identify with who they are. And then with some, it's a feeling because of things that have happened. Mm-hmm. Life throws us all kinds of scenarios, and depending on how we handle the scenario is how we evolve in our environment. I'll say it that way. Okay. So life can throw issues at people, and how they handle the issue is a totally.
Can I answer or say something towards that question? And this is just me learning, okay? So I am a counselor, so I work with different type of people, and I have this kid. He identifies as a girl, and I have this other coworker who is gay, and the kid, some days he want to be a boy, some days he want to be a girl. I didn't know they had a term for it, and he said it's called fluid, based on how he feels. So he was like, okay, I'm a boy, I want to be a boy, I want everybody to call me a boy. And then other days he would say, hey, I'm a girl today. You'll know how he's a girl because he would be a little more feminine. He would do his hair and stuff like that. So a lot of other people outside looking in, they would have a hard time with it, accepting it. Like one day you need to be a boy, or you need to be a boy all the time, or something that you said about it being a feeling versus identity. 'Identity. So I guess, when do you know? 'Cause I don't know. 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 'Cause it's just a feeling that will pass, or does it ever pass, or is it always would it always be a struggle with your identity? I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, because I'm still learning about it, and I don't like. For disclaimer, I am very uncomfortable, and I'm uncomfortable because I'm here to learn. You know,
You're coming from a good
and
place.
then you did say something earlier about the relationship. When you see somebody, most times people don't want to think about building a relationship. So when you see somebody, you automatically want to judge and have these statements, but you have to go past the visual part to build a relationship so you can love them for who they are. But that's something that people struggle with across the board with anyone, building healthy relationships. So when we talk relationships in our families, within our coworkers, whatever, people that we see every day. So when we see somebody who comes from the outside coming into the church, and you say automatically build a relationship, we have to start programming ourselves. When somebody comes into the church, relationship should be the first thing we see.
I wouldn't say it's an automatic thing.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to build a relationship, which means you have to take time spending time with that person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's uncomfortable, because there are times where we can come into the church and people will say certain things, and it's like, okay, you really said that? Like, seriously? Because I've experienced that too, where they'll just say all kind of weird stuff, and I'm like, let me remember who I am and who Jesus is in me, because the response for me is a little quicker back then, before my relationship with the Lord got stronger. Because back mothers, there were certain things that people would say, and all of a sudden, I'll forget that I'm in church, and I have to catch myself like, wait, you got to remember you're in church. You can't say that, because that's not right. Because church people have a tendency of they want to try to accept you, but they don't know how to go about saying the right thing to accept you, because then they'll end up saying the wrong thing, and it will make somebody uncomfortable, and it will become offending. And then people in our community, we don't like people offending us, because we real quick to snap. So
I think as Naka's saying, there is some learning that exactly, because it is very intricate. It is very intricate. Like coming up, okay, we knew you were either straight or you were gay. That was about it. Now the letters are getting a lot are being added. So it is very intricate. So a lot of times there is not enough information to know. I want to go to Fritz for a moment. And you can having to parent, to be a loving parent to someone who is experiencing these feelings and these identity grappling. How has that been for you in that dynamic?
Yeah. So many probably know or don't know, my daughter grew up in the church. A comfortable way, she was in a same-sex relationship. So at first, when it first came about, it was like, oh, she'll get over it. It's just, kids, when they get to be young adult, they try to experience many things. She'll get over it. And so if she was in a relationship with a young man, I still wouldn't have a problem the way the relationship was going. So my thing is, I taught my daughter, you date, and there's certain things you have to do till you get married. So regardless of who she was dating, I taught her godly principle. So those godly principles, not to go with a lot of detail, were not being followed. So not only I was uncomfortable with the choices, because with God started going south. So now, then we couldn't see eye to eye on many things. But one thing I always tell her, just because I don't approve of your lifestyle doesn't mean I don't love you. And a lot of times she will stop calling, she will kind of like will move away, but I'll call her, call her ace. And so I thought I was smarter. I ship her to Oakwood. That's why I always say, ship her to Oakwood. Oakwood will remove it out of her. And unfortunately, she ended up coming right back and come to Miami. And those things is now I will talk on behalf of the church. One thing I do notice, that argument is always one-sided. It's always what the church is doing but the church also is not have that one-sided conversation all the time. The church not doing, not doing, not doing. We say a lot of time the church is a hospital, but it's a hospital for everybody.
Facts.
It is not just sister so-and-so supposed to know better, but I'm not supposed to know better. Sister so-and-so supposed to love me the way they are, but how come you're not loving sister so-and-so because she's being impatient with you? So it's kind of like it's a both way. Just like I had to learn how to deal with my daughter, and my daughter had to learn how to deal. My dad, even today, she'll tell you, I know my dad relationship. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. But as a Christian, as a man of God, I love my daughter, and I tell my daughter, I love you, I care about you, but because of my faith, because of what I know, and because what she knows, we both understand there's a reason why I cannot accept that lifestyle. It doesn't mean I don't accept you. And I always tell her, the problem we face is a sin problem, and sin manifests itself in so many ways. And you're not a problem. The problem you have is a sin problem. And I'm praying every day that you will overcome that sin, because my goal for you is to see you in heaven one day. But I do think what happened in the church, forget that's the goal. That all sin has to be overcome for us to make it to heaven.
Quick follow-up for you. Has that dynamic with you as a father, daughter, has it help evolve your perspective, your knowledge in any way at all? Like, is there anything that you feel, okay, maybe you thought about it a certain way, and then now that you're in the dynamics, like, oh, okay, like, is there any way?
Yes and no. It doesn't change my view about it, because my view is a biblical view. But what it does, it's helped me to look at, people that struggle with that lifestyle differently. I don't know if I'm making sense. So
You are.
Yeah, my view is still the same. It's a sin. So what happened, there's people that struggle with it, but there's people that's pushing an agenda. You don't even call it a sin. So what my daughter even helped me to understand that.
Right.
I'm not part. Like 2 Fridays ago, we were talking about it. She said, I'm not part of the LGBTQ plus agenda. She just struggled with same-sex relationship. So, and she started telling me all the agenda. One of the things she hate is don't like it. She don't embrace it. She just know that, hey, I'm in a same-sex relationship, but I don't embrace. So a lot of times, right, yeah, I kind of can have a conversation. So growing up from Haiti, you know how you feel like if you shake hand with a gay person, they're gonna transfer the gay gene. So you grow up from it. You can go, like, matter of fact, we went to a party and it's Dion's friend and he's happened to be gay. There were a lot of gay. I'm less comfortable of Christ in you. You want them to understand that as Christian, right? We want you to understand we love you, we care about you, but my goal for you, and that's my problem. A lot of times you want to have that conversation, but a lot of times they don't want to have that conversation. Our goal is to help him to open.
There are some extensions that have to be made, and obviously when it hits closer to home, right, it definitely impacts us a lot more. There's something you said about just how we connect with one another. Just sharing about me for a little bit. I mean, I was violated as a young child by a male. So the possibility of me having grown up to be somebody who has same sex, and that it didn't happen that way. So because that violation happened, I've always had a hard time building close friendships with males. I've only had a few male best friends in my life. I've always felt being able to deal better with women because friends with a guy and he tries, you know what I'm saying? You always have that in your mind, right? But like you, I found that more recently, not just in interactions with people like Michael Carducci, right? But also just through relationship with Christ, that I find myself not only being more open to having those sort of relationships, but when I see somebody like Michael, I would go to feel that level of discomfort and not have any level of feeling like, oh man, I hope da-da-da-da. So, like you said, that opportunity for growth is there. And it's there on both sides. is there on the side of us who are in the struggle, who are in the lifestyle. So like you said, I think you said a good thing there, that grace has to be given on both sides. Grace has to be given on both sides, and love has to be exercised on both sides and not by sight. How do we ensure that what we see with our eyes, that our eyes do not stop us from loving? Us from loving. Go ahead now.
Well, we were studying last week in the book of Acts, right? And that's what I said. So everybody has this idea what a church person's supposed to. Got Peter. We were studying the book of Acts. You think Peter would know better? Peter experienced Jesus Christ, right, with the woman of the well. Jesus has given many examples. He came for everyone, Jews and Gentiles, right? How is it then? It took years, 3.5 years with Jesus Christ. We know at least 40 days to the Pentecost. Then, years after, God still had to tell Peter, what I created you. Times, there are many prejudices, right, we are born with. It's hard to divorce those prejudices. Just like overnight, you don't just snap a finger and you come and that person say, I'm looking at you. I can see you with God creation, just like I seen it. Not everybody. That's why they say the church is a hospital. Everyone come to the hospital for different diagnoses, and they all have to be treated differently. They're all getting different type of medication. If you go to the hospital, some have cancer, some come for diabetes. So I feel like a lot of time when people say church people, they look at that person had done something for me. I identify them as every church. Even those 50 people was good to you. You remember that one person that was mean to you, and you identify that person as church people.
Lanaka?
So much. Can you repeat the thing? Somebody texted me something. What is loving? It's acceptance of people without condition, 1 Corinthians 13, and tries to lead them in the right direction. Yes, the person. I want Christ to love. And I say that because, once again, it goes back to, we see what we see and we judge and all the good stuff, but all the other stuff. But you have the, I lost the question, but I'm going to go back with loving. I have to love. You have to know who God is. You have to have a stronger relationship with God, because Jesus, he loved regardless of who you were, regardless of what your profession, regardless of whatever you got going. God did not sit and judge you right there, judge you. Jesus did not sit there and judge you. He loved you, right? And we have to. But I'm curious.
No, I'm not laughing because of that. I'm laughing because you're speaking from a genuine place.
Yes.
And I can tell it's genuine. There are other people who can't do that because, and I get that he's saying that we have to accept people where they are. True enough, we do. Mm-hmm. I'm not negating that. I'm not disagreeing with that. The church is a hospital. My issue is we continuously say that the church is a hospital. Mm-hmm. But my thing, your recovery shows. It shows. Your recovery shows. Mm-hmm. So there is no way you can go to a hospital for the same condition all the time. At one point, at some point, at any given moment, when you get to that hospital and your medication does what it needs to do to show the recovery, which means at some point, you can give people enough time to love on you. You can give yourself enough time to love on somebody else. But at some point, that relationship has to be evident in that person's situation where you're still mad at this person because of whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. So there has to be evidence of your recovery. Because you can't continuously go to the hospital seeking recovery, and recovery isn't evident.
Maybe we need to go to a new hospital.
If I may say, I like what you said, but it go both sides. That's why I said earlier when Max showed the clip. Now, medication at some point has to work a little bit, just like for the member, you expect him to grow in grace. then you expect other people. Hold on.
Yeah,
Can I
go ahead.
just
No, go
1
ahead.
second, please? Yes. So you see, that's what I'm saying. We have to give mutual forbearance for both sides, just willing to give it, and and we grow and we understand that we're in a great controversy. There's a lot of things that's happening is because the enemy wants us to continue to fight over those issues instead of come at some point to understand that we all in this together.
Okay, now to your point of whether it's a member or a visitor, to me it shouldn't matter. I don't care if you're a member or a visitor. I don't care what the context was. Honestly, for me, the context was just wrong completely. I don't care if you were a long-standing member. No pastor, and I'm going to say this even though the pastor's in the room, no pastor has the authority, and I'm going to say it this way. No pastor has the authority to tell anybody to leave God's house. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if the church is a hospital and you're supposed to be there to help them recover, what you did was you literally just stopped. The first step is to admitting that you have a problem. That pastor does not know if that drag queen was coming in to admit that there is an issue that they have to deal with. You took it upon yourself as a man of God, or whatever you want to call yourself, to do this. You didn't do this in the office with just you and the person. You outright embarrassed this drag queen in front of a lot of people. First of all, it is not easy to dress up, to walk in anywhere, any place, as a drag to do. So for any pastor, I don't care who they are, what religion they are a part of, for any pastor to feel that they are uncomfortable to look at somebody who was already uncomfortable coming out of the house, to throw them out of God's house, that is something you're going to have to answer to God to. Because at the end of the day, that person's soul is on your hands because you did not give them an opportunity to sit through whatever message you had to preach, to get whatever they needed to move to the next step to finding their place of recovery.
Yes.
For people that are part of this community who are trying to find a place, we keep calling it sin. We get that in our community. We hear that so much to where we tired of hearing that it's sin. We know that. That's not nothing new for us. The thing that we have a problem with is when we come into God's house, we don't need anybody already judging us for what we look like. That's number one. Certain things that we wear and we dress, we already worry about who looking at us. We're not worried about what people gonna say. In our minds, we are trying to find a space that is safe for us to be able to worship God in spirit and in truth without anybody judging us because of what we look like, who we love. Because at the end of the day, the Bible says, let the wheat and tares grow together, and I will do the separating. What our problem is, candy coming out of our mouths. That is the one sin that we address from the pulpit like nothing else in God's house is a sin. And for me, any pastor who preaches one more sermon, and I'm going to give this disclaimer because I'm so tired of hearing it. If I hear one more sermon about Sodom and Gomorrah, my first question to that pastor is, can you find something else in the Bible besides that story? Because there is more scriptures about homosexuality and lesbianism in the Bible besides Sodom and Gomorrah. Because I'm going to need us to stop using that to bash the gay community, because that is what preachers do. And we don't like it, if I got real passionate, but that's just, that's how I feel when it comes to, we talk about this like it is a cancer. It is not. We have an opportunity to have a relationship with God, but unfortunately, we can't find places that are safe enough for us to do that. Because of people looking at what we look like, judging us because of what we look like, to deal with them in church. You deal with them like you deal with anybody else that's walking in there that got an issue. You accept the fact that they have an issue. That's number one. because they're already accepting the fact that they have an issue. It's an issue that they are dealing with 365 days out of the year. And in order for them to get recovery, to admit that they have a problem, because our first thing is we don't want to talk to them, we don't want to deal with them. No kind of bond or relationship, because we feel that what they're doing is a problem and it's going to rub off on me because they like this. I want somebody to say that to me, and I promise you, forgive me, but I know Jesus, and I know him a little too well. So when I get on my knees, me and God have good conversations, and I tell God, you fight this battle, because I'm not fighting it no more with church people. I have had to fight this battle all my life. I am 43 years old. I don't need no other church not to accept me for who I am, because I choose to love who I want to love. That's number one. But I know who God is. And at the end of the day, when we do his job, the Holy Spirit does deliverance all the time. Our problem is we are hands-on, and we want people to be delivered overnight. It don't happen like that.
Go ahead, Lanaka.
Thank you, Paris. I mean, I have I'm going to piggyback on something that you said. You said a lot, but just one thing that stood out to me, and you said it as well. The church is a hospital, but nobody lives in the hospital. You have to allow people to get what they need from the physician and be able to apply it in life, right? Any recovery, if I'm an addict and I'm trying to do bad instructions, you have to apply it. And it may take them 3-4 years, 2 months. I don't know the time, but we have to allow the person to apply the instructions, but they can't get the instructions the same way. They may didn't take the Tylenol. They may didn't take the medication. They made a struggle. They did it Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday came in. Something happened. But we have to allow them, all right, come back. Let's do it again. Especially when you work in substance abuse, they go, they clean 30 days, and then they have a lapse. And they show triggers, and how can we do better next time? So it's just like that. But that all have to come with love.
And I mean, you are highlighting that reminds me of Hosea and Gomer, just how God used that situation to teach his children something. And Paris, I appreciate that you are passionate.
Me too.
Because I know lives are depending. So I appreciate the passion, because it is meaningful, and we should not take it lightly. We do have a last question, and our last question is really, where do we go from here? We've had this conversation. We want to invite Pastor to chime in on that one. You can come on now, Pastor. You are. To chime in on that one. Be like, where do we go from here? Because this is not our first time having this kind of conversation. So where do we go?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. You're getting another chair for me. He's putting me on the panel. Oh, mercy. Well, first off, I want to thank each and every one of you for sharing tonight. There were different perspectives that I heard. I listened to you all very carefully. And I want to say this first. We can't have a caveat, fine print, or clauses when it comes to loving people. That's the first point. We've just got to love people, period. We can't have, well, I'm loving you, but when we hear that, everything else gone. It's just that we're loving them. Now, we use the analogy of the hospital time and time again tonight. You know that the ambulance is bringing you there. You would shudder or begin to say, can you turn this thing around right here in Miami? Some even told me, if I know I'm going to, then I need to go to the other one. Because they know that most likely if you go to that hospital, the chances are that you're not coming out, or when you come out, you're coming out in a very cold place called the morgue. Some have doctors, some have nurses that actually lack empathy. Some don't even care for the patient. And in the same way, many churches operate like the hospital. Some have individuals who lack empathy. Surgeons, many hospitals have surgeons, if not all hospitals have surgeons. And there are many surgeons that we would not want to go to I even heard one, they called him Dr. Death. And he loved to cut and never knew how to sew back. Some patients, when they sewed them back, they even found instruments inside of their bodies. In the same way, many churches operate like those surgeons who are not kind or even attentive to how they're cutting. And there are many churches that begin to cut in that way. And especially when it comes to the LGBTQ, hospitals get better. Now, I know that there are some hospitals that did very poorly when they have been looked at in the past, and their scores were extremely low. And they had administrative changes that took years to take place where there is love and empathy to actually show. Hospitals can get better when administrators are more sensitive to the needs of the patients. And indeed, in the same way with churches, if our leaders are more attentive and loving to those who they are to minister to, then of course, there would be a different atmosphere in many of our churches. Hospitals get better when they are transparent to the threat that exists with patients and care for that patient genuinely. So it's not, and believe me, there are many individuals who have been through that situation where they've been left in the hallway. Can you imagine if you're really hurting, if you're really in pain, you get to the hospital and they tell you, well, we'll take care of you, sure. And they put you in a hallway and for hours you don't even get to see a surgeon or someone who will look after you? Think about the hurt that we have caused within God's church when we treat individuals as if they're just wanting to address the needs of its members. And here's the thing, I'm going to say this lastly. One thing that frustrates me a whole lot are cell phone companies who treat new clients differently than the old clients. I mean, you've been there, right? You have experienced a cell phone company who give all the new people perks, give them discounts, tell them that they have 50% off, will even give them $400 if they sign up on the dotted line. And here I am, 5 years, church treats new people differently than the ones who have always been here. I mean, really and truly, that's what we have seen in this video. And that's what we've heard sometimes even tonight, that, oh, if they're a member of the church for a long period, I'm not hitting you, Elder Fritz, but I'm letting you know that there are some who have that mindset, that if they're, how about we change the model? How about we just treat people with kindness? How about we just love individuals? Because individuals like us, we go through changes in our lives, changes in how things happen even in our homes, changes with our family members, our work environment. So maybe it is that we're going through certain crises to what they're asking, what they're going through, the situations that they have experienced in their lives, because we really don't know. We've heard that tonight. Paris, you said it. We don't know what people are going through, really and truly. I've seen individuals in churches and had to deal with this issue, and I don't want to bring up all the Kool-Aid here, but some of it needs to be brought up, where there was a young lady coming to church, and her skirt was a little short that morning and all that different stuff, and they hadn't seen her in a long time, where she was and all that stuff and all the business. At the end of the day, what they didn't know is that night before, she had been raped by multiple individuals. And I went to that situation and ministered to her. And then she was like, I can't come to church. And in that and before I can get to her, there were those who met her before me and continued to belittle her for her skirt, not realizing what she had been through. And for that, even to this day, she has never returned to church. That has a lasting effect. When a surgeon cuts you, there is pain that is going to be lasting. And if there's not care given, if there's not that empathy given, if there's not someone to care for the needs of that patient, for sure that pain is going to exist for years to come, and they will never forget it. And be sure, as a church, showing love. Christ didn't judge people based on what he saw. He just continued to minister to them, to be there with them, to party with them in a wholesome manner that showed them that you don't have to be drunk to party. You know, whatever he did, he was there close to those who others tried to push away. And maybe as a church, just maybe, if we were mindful in caring for individuals, loving them, greater witness in allowing for them to accept Christ, who truly we're pointing to and who we're trying to exemplify. So that, I think, is the way forward. If we would really show and exemplify who who Christ really is, as Christians that we call ourselves, everything will be different. That's really and truly the way forward for me.
Amen. I think Pastor really tackled the next. I really do. First of all, just want to thank every single one of you. The conversation was passionate. It was enlightening. It was educational. It was empowering. I appreciate you all making sure that you were authentic in what you were saying. And, for the next time, as the Lord leads, if we have you back again, conclude this. The majority of Jesus' sermons did not take place inside of the synagogue. As a matter of fact, his most well-known sermon took place on a mount. And that's because Jesus always went where the fish were. He was a fisherman. He called us to be fishermen. He always went where the fish were. Now, they're all fish inside us, training and preparation so that we can sharpen our tools and our skills and our readiness for us to be able to go where the fish are. The church was never meant to be a fortress that protects something precious from the fish, but rather something that holds something. I am lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. If the drawing is not happening, it is likely because the lifting up is not happening. The lifting up of Christ. So we must end it us. Because at the end of the day, all of us, at some point or another, were fish that needed saving. So, at the foot of the cross, all fish of all lifestyle, orientation, gender, non-gender, likes and preferences are all welcome at the foot of the cross. Exemplify at this church, and we want to welcome anyone to be able to come here. And as we go through our process of being molded into Christ-like image, so that we can welcome you in love, and God says that we can be confident that the work that he has begun, he will finish it. So thank you again for your participation. Thank you for all those who watched online. Those here at Tabernacle, we have church tomorrow as always. Sabbath school starts 9:45 or 10? 9:45? 10? 9:30. 9:30. Not 9:30. 9:30 tomorrow, and we have our midday service after that. Tomorrow is our evening. We'll also be celebrating our Father's. At what time is that? 6? At 6 o'clock, we'll have our Father's Day program. So if you and Dad don't have any plans, please come out and have a good time with us. Stay connected with us, Tabernacle, and also, dear God, we are grateful that you were able to use us. Lord, we are sinful vessels, but we are grateful that in your mercy, you choose to use us nonetheless. I thank you for everyone who was on this panel. Thank you that, Lord, whatever apprehension to speak, Lord, we are all in process, not just on this topic, but overall. So I pray, God, that you continue to bring us through the place that you want us to be. Lord, you ask us to walk by faith and not by sight. I pray that you would help us not to allow what we see to be able to keep us from seeing how you see. Lord, you even told Jeremiah, do not be afraid of their faces. Do not be afraid or be uncomfortable by what you see. Allow me to work through you. So help us in that manner, not only individually, but as this church here at Tabernacle and as a church overall, Father. Lord, help us to love like you do. And we can ask for, please don't forget to do for us. In your name I pray, amen.